Hold on. Hello, hello.
How are you, Andy?
Good to finally meet you like face to face.
Yes, it's awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, you're welcome. Honor is all mine. Wow. There it is in live living color. Lori Sue, how are you? How was your week? Yo, talk to me. What's up?
Uh,
What's going on?
Life is lifing, as it does. But you gotta flow. You take it one day at a time, and keep focusing on getting to the weekend and the time you can be with your family and the people that you love. So it's all we can do.
Amen. Yeah,
Yeah.
amen. That's what we can do. Yeah, had a very, I think it was a peaceful week for the most part. Not that bad, Today was a little bit exhausting because when it comes to Thursday going to Friday, it's very like I got truck at 6 in the morning, so I'm like, oh my God. So like I always drink like a lot of coffee and caffeine on a Friday, but we're good. We're good for the most part. We're chilling and so for those who just chiming in, welcome to Unraveled Sessions Live. We're having an interview with Lori Sue. So for those, don't know who you are, for those who just, again, like, welcome everybody, and we'll start from that. So tell us who you are, what you do, all that stuff, and how did poetry come to your life?
Oh, how did poetry come into my life? Well, I think, I've been a writer my whole life. It's always something that I've just done from the time I was very little and I learned that I could do it. And I used to, when I was a kid, write a lot of, these stories. I would put together these little books and stuff, and I was always insatiably curious. So I loved exploring. I don't know if you remember, like back in the day, the World Book series or like the encyclopedias that everybody would have in
Mm,
their house.
oh my God,
And I would
yes.
love like digging in there and like exploring and finding out about the world and then writing about it. But poetry didn't really come into my life until I was in middle school. And I remember I had this incredible teacher who knew I was very passionate about reading and writing, and she introduced me to Langston Hughes.
Mm,
And I remember the first time I read Harlem, the
mm,
piece that talks about what happens to a dream deferred. And the visceral language that he used, but the simplicity of the words and the structure of that piece was so powerful. It shook me to my core. And I thought to myself, I want to do that. It was that type of piece where, really powerful work. I feel like you read it and you're never the same again. And sometimes you don't even know why, but it stays with you. And I thought, I want to have that impact on the world. And then I read his piece, Mother to Son, which is the Crystal Staircase. And the authenticity of her voice in that piece really struck me because before that, I had always acknowledged that there were powerful voices for protagonists in fiction, but I had never seen that in poetry. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I can do this. I wonder if I can really create an environment where you feel that you are engaging with another person in real time and being part of their life and filling in the gaps in your mind, which is the other piece. And that's when it started. Middle school. I started writing poetry. I started working with literary journals, and I never stopped. I've been writing ever since.
wow. So no, and that's awesome. That's an interesting story. I love that so much. And I know you mentioned the literary journals and stuff. What was it about it that it fascinated you? Was it the wording? Was it just the way they spoke to you? Like how did that look like for you in the beginning of that journey?
In the beginning of the journey, I think a lot of it was trying to find my voice. I'm still trying to find my voice. I think all of us as writers, ideally, we're looking to continue to grow and evolve our skill. And when I was younger, it was really about making sense of the world around me. It wasn't until I got older that I realized that it was also a way to process things, to process what was going on around me, the things I couldn't control, the things that I wanted to scream to the world around me, pay attention to this. This is important. This is relevant. And poetry is a powerful way to accomplish that. When I was in college, that's when I became exposed to some other poets that had a significant impact on my writing style. One of them is Wallace Stevens, who's an American poet. He's well known for two pieces. One of them is The Snowman, and the other is The Emperor of Ice Cream. But there was a piece that I read from him. It's Anecdote of a Jar. And it's this very simple piece about this jar that's placed on this hill. And his wording is very eloquent, very simple, but the meaning behind the piece is very profound. And it's talking about the impact that something made from man that's unnatural has on a natural environment long term. And that really struck me because it created the sense in my mind of exponentiality and what you could really do with work. What does that look like? You know, when you write, I love the concept that, you know, so many people can read your work and get something completely different out of it from what you intend. And then it just continues to grow from there. And it even evolves, I feel like, over a lifetime. You know, one of my favorite poets when I was young was Shel Silverstein. You know, when I was little, I loved The Giving Tree and I loved Where the Sidewalk Ends. And when I was a kid, I didn't realize what I was reading. As an adult now, I read that to my youngest son, and I'm really struck by how profound those pieces are. You know, and the fact that a child can see something in there, but so can an adult. It has such relevance continually as you move through different stages in your life.
Wow, I'm trying to process all this. This is wow. And you did mention Silverstein. I do have like The Missing Piece, the book. I actually have the book
Yes.
myself.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
This
He's
is a
one of my
very underrated. I think it's Shel Stevens. Shel Steven. Okay, well, I can't talk
You
English.
got it. You got it.
Shel
You got it.
Silverstein is very underrated because, like, I'm thinking, okay, this is a church's book. It's about the circle missing piece, right? But the thing is, if you look at the symbolism behind that, like now that I look at it in context today, I'm like, wait a minute, that's how we are in life, right? Because we are the circle that's trying to fit in, or we're trying to fight something that fits our circle, but sometimes, you know, in the circle, once we are complete, we're the complete circle, that means we miss out on the things we used to enjoy, because now you didn't enjoy the bee, you didn't enjoy the flower, because you just kept rolling, and then it got to the point where, okay, well, I don't want this anymore, and then it detaches itself. But it's like the symbolism behind that sometimes, you know, there's so many directions you could take. And I think a children's book like this, no one's really thinking about that at the time we're reading until we get older. Like, wait a minute, this is how life really is sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
It's
so
incredible.
profound. It's so profound. Like, yo, it's crazy to think like something like that could have that impact. And I think in that same way, I think that's how we like to be with our pieces as well. You know, when we write something, and you mentioned how, let's say you wrote a piece, but it spoke to somebody differently. And I think that's what makes poetry and art so important, because, like, let's say my intention was to write a sad piece, but maybe the somebody that read that piece, they took it a different way, different direction. They took it, oh, but this was more positive for me because it helped me understand that I'm not alone, let's say, for example. And I think that's what makes it so profound, because we just don't know what direction. Like, I wanted it this way, but somebody took it this way, and that way, and it was like, you know what, like, I think that's what's so impactful when it comes to that kind of stuff. So when it comes to like creating your pieces, can you walk us through, like, what is it like creating one of your poems from interpretation to completion and all that? Like, what does that look like for you?
So, you know, I have to be honest with you. I'm one of those writers and creators that, and I mean no offense by this, but I don't write for an audience. I write for myself. And I felt actually felt pretty validated recently because I was listening to Rick Rubin's podcast, and he talks about this, that it's almost like the death of your art is when you start creating for somebody else, for something other than what you're feeling in
Mm,
yourself and you're trying to convey. You're trying to meet an
mm,
expectation right there. You're coming out the gate doing it wrong. You're not going to hit what you want to hit, I feel like, at least for me. So a lot of times, I start with journaling, and as I'm journaling, things will bubble up. There may be themes that I see in my journaling that'll inspire me to write a piece. Sometimes I literally have to pull over on the highway and break out my phone because I get inspired by something
mm.
and I have to start writing on it, and I need to get through it. But my process when I'm doing it is almost like, did you see that movie that was out recently, Gran Turismo,
Yeah,
the game, the
I
city.
know the video game. I
Okay.
know the video game.
Okay, so the whole concept, right, is like a race car driver he's not seeing what's in front of him. He's seeing like so many clicks ahead, and it's almost
Mm,
like you're looking through. So when I'm writing, that's my process. I'm almost looking through. It's like this stream of consciousness that's pouring out of me. And once I complete a piece, I will edit it slightly. And usually the editing that takes place is because as I'm reading it after I've created it, I love doing spoken and I love reading my pieces out loud. So I
mm,
want to make sure that the flow is where I want it to be. So I may make some minor tweaks, but I try to keep it, very organic and authentic to what is poured out of me. And one of the other things that I really have worked very hard on and stayed committed to is not judging my work when I write. I
okay.
there are a lot of times, you'll go through that process and I'll look down and I'll think like, did I just write a piece of shit? Like, did I just write something amazing? I don't really know like how
Mm,
I feel about this. And I feel like as an artist, sometimes we just need to step away from that judgment and we just need to put it out there
mm,
and see how we feel about it. And so that's what I try to do. Like what you see on my page when it comes out, is truly me moving through my process and just getting it out there and then moving on. It's interesting because actually, I'm just now starting to work on a manuscript. So I'm going back to all the pieces that I've written in the past. I think there's over like 230 pieces in the last year that I've written. And there's stuff I've forgotten that I've wrote
mm,
because I feel almost as if I just need to keep moving through, moving through, moving through, and then I'll reflect later. I don't want to change whatever's happening in that organic process, if that makes sense.
mm. That reminds me of an interview I had when I first started season 9 with Ambria Noel. She said something and it just brought me back to that, where she says that when she writes, she doesn't edit her soul. That was like
Yes,
the highlight of that interview, and I think in that same way, that's what I'm getting out of
yes.
that. You don't edit, like whatever my soul shouts, I'm not gonna edit. I'm not gonna tell my soul how to feel. Like if that's how my soul felt, that's how it felt. Here
Mm-hmm.
it is, take it. And bottom line, end of discussion, case closed. And I'm gonna read some of the comments. Prolific Poet says yes, just put it out there. And then J Oscar underscore poetry says, I love that. It's almost like some of your pieces become time capsules. Yeah, yeah, I can see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Thank you, girl. Love you. Mhm.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's true. And I love that part about it too, because I think there are certain times where, if you were given, I think that's a difference between writing for work, writing for school, and writing for yourself. You know, what comes out of you, what pours out of your soul is a reflection of the lens that you're moving through in your life at that time and at that moment. And that's authentic. Authenticity is something that's really important to me as an artist. And, I feel like that's important as well. If you start to muddy with it, if you start to mess with it, you start to affect your authenticity. You start to, I guess it's almost like when you catch yourself in a mirror, you know? I don't want to catch myself in the mirror. I want to just be me when I write.
Mm. Okay, wow, I love that. Catch yourself in a mirror. I love that. And Authenticity of the Soul, that's by D Matt Dragon. And then Zulu 55 says, you speak about a lot of things that we don't say out loud. So proud of you. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Uh,
Believe
Thank
in
you, my
poets. It's
love.
amazing feeling when what you are going through touches others. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's why it's important to speak our truth, however that looks like. And yeah, that's definitely important. Um, so I guess I wanted to ask, can you give us an example of how you write? Let's give the audience give us something.
Do you want me to read something, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. I'll read a piece I recently posted, and what I love about this piece is it ties into what we were talking about regarding perception and what people see. This one I don't have memorized, though usually when I do my spoken, my preference is to memorize my pieces, but unfortunately I don't have this one memorized. So, okay. I'm insatiable. I want to go deep, deeper. Mm-hmm. Right there. Lift me up. Let my toes dangle and dance through your currents, winding salty hair into pillowy halos as I float back and forth, swept in your gentle push and pull. Lick the brine from my lips. Taste the hunger tormenting my soul as I rise and break through your crests, breathless, lungs on fire, body aching. My God, it hurts so good to steep in your depths, to open my eyes and watch you unfurl from the inside out, to bear witness to your beautiful chaos over and over and over again. So, what I
Yo.
love.
I agree with Jay Oscar. Yeah, I wasn't ready for that. What? Lick the brine
I know
from my lip.
it's not
Yeah.
Saturday. It's not Saturday. It's not spicy Saturday yet. Um,
Oh my God. Wow.
what? So
We always have this thing on my platform where we joke around. Oh yeah, Andy's having a PoetryGasm. That's exactly what this is right now. Holy shit!
I'm
Wow.
sorry, Andy.
Yeah, I
Next
need a
time I'll
minute
give you a warning.
too.
Put up a
I need to
warning.
process this because I'm so holy shit. You know what? Because when I listen to someone speak or read a piece or recite the piece, I'm visualizing the thing happening. So I was like, oh shit, okay.
But wait. Here's the crazy thing, right? And I'm going to take everybody down right now with this. But so I know this piece sounds like very erotic, right? And that's how it was received by the community. Like everybody who read it was like, ah. But here's the thing. I actually, that piece is actually about my longing to be in the ocean. So I actually wrote that piece. Recently, I had COVID and I was feeling very isolated in my house, and I was feeling like I needed to get out and I need to be in nature. Nature always resets me, and the ocean is one of the places I always go to. And so, even though it was freezing in Jersey, I went down to my favorite beach and I sat there, and I wanted nothing more than to be in the water. Because one of my favorite things is that first time you can get into the water and you go out just beyond where you can stand, and you're looking out at this expanse of open ocean. And there is so much of the world ahead of you and all of this chaos beneath the surface, and how it becomes this beautiful experience of being part of something so much bigger than yourself, where you're relinquishing control, but your body is feeling so good being wrapped into this moment and not wanting to leave it, and how beautiful it feels to be baptized and to be resurrected in that way and rejuvenated. So I wrote that at the ocean when I was at the beach, and it wasn't until I laid it out that I was like, oh,
Mm,
I guess I really like the ocean.
wow.
Yeah,
Yo.
yeah.
Wow. Whew. That is wow. Yeah, because I still need a minute. Edward Racy was like, wow, you brought it to life. Yes. And then Tony Z was like, it's Saturday here in Australia. So, and then Jay Oscar's like, man. And then Jay Oscar also says, you can't change my mind. Ocean is a very lonely, splish splash. Not accepting that piece is about the Atlantic. Nope, not gonna do it. Church, surrounded by nature and all of its essence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm not gonna lie. It's funny because I love nature.
Mhm.
Like let's say if I have nothing going on, like, cause where I live in Bayonne, there's like this Central Park looking thing, and there's like the water, so I like to go over there. Or like when I used to live in New York, I would sometimes take the train to Coney Island because I just love the island. It's something about the ocean, it's something about nature that it
Mhm.
just takes you to this warp zone looking place or it takes you to a place of remnants sometimes that it's just like, wow, wait, how did this remind me of something? And then it became this whole big circle of a thing. Like, wow, this is insane. And it's something about nature. It's
Yeah.
something about nature that takes you to that place. Because I can go to the roof of my building and it's like, okay, like this, it took me here, but it's something about the nature that it's a whole different thing. It's like,
Yeah.
yo, that's insane. That's insane. Um, wow, wow. Oh, you
You
gotta give
still
me a
need some
second,
time?
folks. Yo, this was wow, wow. Whew, okay, okay. Oh, get yourself
Sorry,
together.
Eddie. Sorry.
No, it's good. I don't mind. So I wanted to ask you because you did mention memorizing. It looks like a lot of people I've
Mhm.
had interview here. They always the main thing is the memorization.
Mhm.
So I did ask this earlier, and in my on the Unraveled Conversations live that I had earlier. When it comes to reciting the piece and reading the piece and actually memorizing the piece and performing it, in your honest opinion, what do you feel? How do you feel is different from each other?
From the performance as opposed to the memorization of it, like when you're actually there.
Yeah, so like let's say if I'm reading from a paper in opposed
Mhm.
to actually memorizing it, but then doing the performance of the memorization.
So I do a lot of public speaking for work as well.
Mm,
And one of the things that I love about performing and speaking is that moment. And it's actually tied to why my handle is called Got You Where I Want
mm,
You. Part of it was a connection to a song and a story that I had heard a while back that I really loved and I thought was very interesting and kind of flipped the script and was very unexpected. I love that. I love when somebody zigs and you think they're going to zag. But there's this moment when you're performing where this wall comes down between you and your audience. And you can feel this exchange of energy happening. And what happens for me when I memorize a piece and I practice it is it becomes a full body experience. And so then when I'm in front of the audience, I'm able to come out from, I don't like being behind a podium. I don't like being, held in one spot. I like to move around. I like to use I'm a Jersey girl. I like to use my hands. I'm always talking with my hands. I like to really, engage and move. And that moment that you can feel that energy and you can see in the eyes of the people in the audience that they are connecting with you. That's what I mean when I say I got you where I want you. Like it is not me giving to you and it is not you just giving to me. There's an exchange. There's this equality, this equity of energy moving through and it is a powerful and beautiful moment. And as a performer, you can feel it. Like like at least I do. I know the minute I make eye contact with somebody in an audience, I know that we're there. So,
Wow. I, oh my God. Wow. Wow. I definitely agree with the full body experience. Because I've never done an open mic in my life. I mean, I've done, virtual, but like I've done last year I did my first well, my platform did our first actual very first show with other poets
mhm.
and stuff like that. And I read a piece here and there. I was like, okay, great. And then it was more like I just wanted to, okay, just so I can get to the other people, because I'm more about, I don't care if I'm featured or not. I mean, I've been invited to features and stuff, and some of them I said no because of shyness. But this year's more like, you know what? I got invited to some stuff this year. I'm actually gonna get out of my comfort zone, and it's like,
Mhm.
so now it's like everything you're telling me, I'm learning from you. I'm learning. I'm taking
Uh,
notes here because that's why I do what I do, because I want to take notes. I want to learn. I want to get out of my shell like a turtle. I want to break the shell off kind of thing, because I've been hiding in this shell for too long type of situation. So doing this helps me appreciate. Okay, got it now. I get it, and I'm learning so much right from you already. Talk
uh,
to me about the full body experience. Like, break that down a little bit more, because there's so many levels of this that we can go right
yeah.
now with this. Talk to me about what is it about the full body experience?
I think it's about movement. And I think that it sends a very clear and distinct message to the audience that you're committed to being engaged with them and not talking down to them or talking to them. I think a lot of people, public speaking is something that is like a legitimate phobia. It's like one of the top 5 fears that people have. And I think that it's because a lot of people get very in their head about feeling like I'm here and I'm talking to them, and they're just looking at me. And that's not what, like, in an ideal situation, it's not what it is. It's an, it's everybody coming together and building off of that. And I feel like if you as an artist, when you're going to read, when you step closer to the audience, you're sending a signal to them that you're part of them. You're here with them. You're not on a stage. There's no divider between the two of you. There's equality, and you're all together. There's buy-in. The reality is if people are coming to a spoken, if they're coming to a performance, they want you to engage with them. That's what they're hungering for. I mean, if you think about it, if you're going to a concert, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that energy. You're looking for that, experience, that exchange. And I think when you hear, especially musicians talk about that, that's from a musician perspective. One of the things that they really love the most is, that moment where, I think David Grohl is the one that said it is like the most beautiful thing is you can write a song and sing it, and 3,000 people are going to sing it back to you 3,000 different ways with 3,000 different meanings. I love that. The macro exponential potential of that is so powerful to me. And that's what I love to bring when I'm doing spoken or when I'm in front of an audience. So physically, what that means is literally coming down from whatever that, if there's a podium or if there's a mic stand, if I can, I always prefer having a handheld or a lavalier so that I can move.
Yeah.
I can come up close to people. I can, if there are people in the audience, I can look you in the eye and I am talking to you. And then I'm talking to you and I'm talking to you. And everybody is looking at each other and is engaged. And there's movement. And, the movement adds to the energy
Mm.
as well. That
Mm.
energy of the word and the performance and what the people in the audience are feeling. And it just starts moving like this. And once you feel it and you get a taste for it, it's addictive. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It really is. It's a high. There's a high that at least I get from that.
No, I love that, and yeah, no, I I'm a big fan of Dave Grohl since like, so that's why I'm like, I knew exactly what you were talking about when you
Yeah.
said that. I was like, wow, wow. No, I love that because it is like this energy thing. You know what's funny? Now that you think about it, you said about the whole musician thing. I didn't even think about that till now. That makes so much sense, right? Because anyone could sit and write a poem or read a poem. I was like, okay, great, that's a great piece, but like, why would I want to invest in watching more of your stuff or reading your book if it's just plain, right? In a sense, like you're doing the whole full body experience, the movement, the energy. Like
Mhm.
I give to you, you give to me, back and forth, exchange this the engagement. It's so true, and it's true what he said too, because like to have them sing the song, the words back to you when you're
Mhm.
performing, like that's a very intimate. It's all about intimacy at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? Because they want to engage with you, like, oh, I want this experience. Yo, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense. And there were some questions I want to make sure I get to these.
Okay.
So Edward Racy says, how many times or how long does it take you to memorize a piece? That's a good question.
Yeah. A lot of it depends on the piece and the length and complexity of the piece. So I do like to challenge myself. There are a lot of some pieces I have a very simplistic style that is very reminiscent of Shel Silverstein, you
Mm,
know. Um, then there are other pieces. One of the writers that I adore and who's had a big influence on me is Thomas Pynchon. And he is a very, very dense writer. I mean, the complexity of his work is, I think, probably I think he probably stands alone in that area. Gravity's Rainbow specifically.
mm,
I've reread that book at least 50 times, and it's deeply annotated. So if I'm working on a complex and dense piece that has a lot of context and references, it takes me a lot longer, and I have to break it down into pieces. So the way that I do that is I start the piece from the beginning, and every time I mess up, I restart from the beginning again. And
mm,
I just keep working it. And then when I hit certain spots that I'm stuck on, because sometimes there is complexity in the language, and it's not, for lack of a better term, what I would say like a normal flow, you know, and it's hard to get the mind to remember it. So what I do is I create a rhythm that's different than the flow to the poetry. It's just a unique rhythm. Like I'll create a beat to it, and I'll say those, say, three lines with that beat three times.
mhm,
So I'm looking at a piece now. So I may say, no breath so tight, no words feel right. No breath so tight, no words feel right. No breath so tight, no words
mm,
feel right. The three times it does, that's something from like a science standpoint. It sticks in your head, and the rhythm helps your brain remember it. And then I just keep going through that process, and I keep recording myself as I go through that process, and then deleting the recordings, and then recording, and then deleting the recordings, and then determining, what the flow really is looking like. Am I achieving what I want to achieve with it? And then eventually, usually, I'd say the longest it's taken me is probably 1 hour to memorize a piece.
wow.
Um, but I've been doing that for a very long time. I mean, when I was younger, and I did spoken in high school, um, it was a requirement. You weren't allowed, to read from a paper or a teleprompter. You had to memorize it. You couldn't even qualify if you didn't memorize your piece.
Mm,
So
that
it,
makes sense.
yeah. So, it's a skill. It's something like anything else you have to build and get used to doing. But, the reason it's so important to me, going back to like what you said about intimacy, I get a lot of comments about my eyes, my eye contact when I do my spokens. And eye contact is probably one of the most important things to me when I'm doing a spoken or when I'm speaking in front of people, whether it's professional or whether it's, doing my art and my writing. And that's because the reality is it really is, I think, the strongest way that we as humans can convey something to one another. Body language a lot of times is as powerful, if not more powerful, than the word itself. So if you can convey that with your eyes when you're communicating with somebody, you've just leveled up. You're taking it to a place that it couldn't be before. And it's something that people remember, and it makes people feel connected to you. So that's the other reason why the memorization is important to me, because I really like to try to preserve the eye contact when I'm doing a spoken.
Wow. No, wow. Man, you really broke a lot of stuff down. Damn, that's great. That is great. And then Jay Oscar says, I love that. Feeling the fear and doing that shit anyway is a top tier energy. Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. Tony Z says, to connect and engage with an audience on a deeper emotional and spiritual level is truly a gift. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that as well. And then Zulo says, body language and facial expressions are everything. Says a lot about the person. Yeah, and then Edward Racy says, thank you for sharing that. I might try some of your techniques if I have enough brain cells left. Oh my God. Really, Edward?
You can
Like,
do
come
it.
on, bro.
I believe in you. I believe in you. I know you got it in you.
Oh my God. You know what's funny? I guess the reason why I'm intrigued by everything you said, because there's so many things you said that I never saw it in that perspective before. Like one thing I do struggle with in general, like when I'm having a
Mhm.
conversation, it is the eye contact. I mean, part of that's the ADHD, part of that's the schizotypal personality. So that's just what it is with me. Because when I meet someone for the first time, I'm very uncomfortable at times. So it's
Mhm.
like I have to tell myself, like Andy, like yo, like give the eye contact. Like when I go for a job interview,
Yeah.
it's so hard to be like this all the time. Yeah, so this is what happened,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, oh my God. But then I feel so uncomfortable outside, inside, but outside I'm displaying something else. But I guess like everything you said, the way you broke those
Mhm.
things down, it's like I never saw it in those perspectives before. I never like I don't want to say I never understood. I guess I haven't really realized in a lot of a sense where how important that really is. Eye contact, the body
Mhm.
structure, the movement, the language, because they all speak a different language. Because I could do the body thing, but if I don't give you eye contact, how do you know that I'm trying to convey to you what I'm trying to convey to you? So I think that I make a weird analogy, but I always say the painkiller antibiotic, they're two different things that work together
Mhm.
to do the same to do what is the what it requires the body to do. So I feel like in that same way, the eye contact and the body language is the most important thing. So they're two different things, but they work together.
Yes. Definitely. Definitely. I think that's really, at the end of the day, one of the things I really see about myself is that, I'm a storyteller. I write poetry. I write other stuff too. I love telling stories. I love it.
Mm.
And, you know, body language is an important part of conveying a story and telling a story. I mean, you've seen, there are a lot of um, people who are very successful in spoken. And one of the reasons why, if you really look at their work and drill it down, it's their use of body language.
Mm-hmm.
It's their posturing, right? Because your posturing is conveying so much information to the audience. You can come out strong and you're talking like this with your flow, and people are feeling that energy. Like right now, there's an intensity that's growing versus we're going to talk about something sensual and I'm going to look at you like this, as we're talking.
Mm.
And so it really is, to me, if you are a strong storyteller, it's a full body experience, at the
Mm.
end of the day.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I'll give you a little check. So I'm going to be very transparent with you. I struggled my whole life with eye contact in one-on-one conversations. Um, and I learned a long time ago one of the most effective ways to maintain eye contact with somebody without it feeling really uncomfortable for you is to look at the nose.
Oh
Look at the
my
nose of
God.
the
You're the
person. No,
second
seriously.
person to tell me that.
It works. It works. If you only knew how many people's noses I have studied, like, yes, look at the nose. That
Look
it
at
works.
the, wait,
Look
what part of
at
the
the nose.
nose? Anywhere in the nose? Like,
Any of the nose, like right here, right here. Not like obviously not if you're performing, like if you're doing your spoken. But that's the interesting thing, right? Because like when you're doing your spoken, you want that eye contact. But suddenly, like for me, I don't, in my real life, I don't like people looking at me. I don't like attention. Like, I don't, it makes me very unsettled and very uncomfortable. But when I'm on a stage, it's a whole different ballgame. And then the eye contact feels very comfortable because I'm in that storytelling mode. You know what I mean? It's like this natural instinct that's taking over. That's very different than when you're having, a real world one-on-one conversation.
yeah. And Walleen Terrian says, "I love eye contact!" Exclamation point.
Yeah. Eye contact is good. It's definitely
Oh,
a good thing.
that's there was another poet by Uncultured Asian, and she told me the same thing with the whole nose thing. No, look, if you feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, look at the nose. I'm like, you're the second person to tell me that. Look at the nose. I'm like, okay, okay. Look at the
It
nose.
works.
Wow.
Works.
That's true
As long as
because
yeah.
no, what were we gonna say? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but you look at the nose. That's
Mm-hmm.
so oh man. Woo. Okay, hold on, because this is really, really. Uh, hold on, because I'm really. My mind is like all over the place right now because like I'm learning so much about like, because I feel like it's learning. Wait, Zulu 55 says you could also look between the
Yes.
eyebrows.
You
Really?
can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
As long as the eyebrows aren't crazy. If the eyebrows are crazy, then you'll end up looking at them like this. You know,
Yeah.
you don't want that.
As long as it's not like, I guess as long as it's not like Enrique Iglesias, he had the little mole on his fucking face and shit before he took him off. So I guess like, oh, I'm gonna look at that, but then this thing is drawing attention. Damn it. Okay, damn it. Mo. Gotta,
It's
ouch.
almost like talking to you, like, don't look at me, don't look at
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. But it's really saying, no, but really do look at me, but I'm telling you not to, even though I'm right there looking at you. Oh
Exactly.
my God. So, hold see, because I had like a whole thing, but like I'm so intrigued with everything we're talking about. Oh my
Okay.
God. So okay, so how do you incorporate your personal experiences into your poetry, and how do you believe, in your honest opinion, how do you believe people should interpret them? And this is like there's no right or wrong answer, of course.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be very transparent. There, so for a lot of my poetry, there is a lot of multiple entendres, right? There's a lot of layers and meaning. I'm saying, a lot of times I may be saying like four different things in one piece, but there are pieces that I do create that are very deeply personal.
Mm.
Um, those usually are tied to trauma. And it's one of the reasons why I try to be an authentic voice. I feel very strongly that we at least in America, our culture and society really frowns on kind of pulling back the curtain and talking about the dark things that make people uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And the reality is there is never going to be a change. We are never going to get better at managing mental health, at dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, at recovery from addiction if we cannot be comfortable addressing the elephant in the room and talking about the problem itself. It just, you can't expect, it's like that old saying, right? The definition of crazy is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So I've really been very transparent. I've written some pieces that have been very hard for me, that speak directly to my trauma, that speak to my experience as a woman in a corporate environment. I started working professionally. I'm in my 40s, so I started working professionally, many, many years ago. I've seen huge changes in how things are done in a corporate setting, but it wasn't always like that, you know. And I feel like that's important. At the end of the day, one of the things that really was hard for me moving through life was feeling like I was alone. I felt like everywhere I looked, everybody was doing good. Everyone's good. But why do I feel like I want to die? Like, honestly, why do I feel like I want to die? Why do I feel like I can't even get out of bed? And the reality is a lot of people feel that way, and nobody's talking about it. So there are a number of pieces that really do speak to that I've written that talk about suicide attempts. I've written pieces that talk specifically about sexual assault, that talk about hypersexualization of a woman, and also about inequity, and that power dynamic between two people. There's a number of pieces that I write. I write a lot about duality also. But I really do like to break that down, because at the end, and I'm also transparent in my comments. Like, I will say, I'm having a hard time. I'm a trauma survivor. If you've gone through this and this resonates, please know you're not alone. Like, it's normal to feel this way, and you can heal. We can get better.
Yeah, no. 100% I agree with you. Like, I'll give an example for me personally, my entire life. So I didn't be so by category. So I always say this. So I drifted away from Christianity as far as the word, but not Jesus, if that makes sense, right? So since I've walked with the Lord since 2013, and the reason why I bring this up is because there's things I talk about in my poetry that it is front on. I'm very transparent, I'm very raw with my stuff. And I'll give you an example, something I've talked about in a piece that people were like, damn, bro, like, really? And I'm like, this is stuff that no one talks about. Like, for example, when you get married, you go to marriage counseling or whatever, what they don't tell you is in the things of God, if you still have certain habits as if you're single and you don't deal with them before you get married, they linger into your marriage. For example, like if you're so used to watching pornography and you don't get that settled before you get married, you don't really be transparent with yourself about it. They don't tell you that those things linger on, and it affects your marriage sometimes. It affects the way you look at your wife. It affects the way you see women sometimes. And that's
Right.
something that church does not talk about. And I talk about stuff like that in my poetry. And it's because, like you said, it needs to be talked about, right? And, because when before me and my wife got married, I'll be honest with you, I have premarital sex, but I didn't understand then what I understood now, even though it was more like, yeah, I do love my wife and everything, but there's this spiritual thing that happens that, like we just don't understand, but it happens, but they don't talk about those things at church. And I talk about that in my poetry, and people have ridiculed me for that, like, and I'm not talking about like online, I'm talking about like people who I've shown stuff to, like in my circle. I don't talk to them anymore because they feel like, oh, well, if it's not God, then you're what's the word they say, heresy, I think is what the word they've said to me. But I'm just like, I'm just being raw, I'm being real, because listen, yeah, I'm a man of God, but I'm human. Like, I don't get it right. We don't.
Right.
And the thing is, there are things that need to be talked about. I even talk about the fact that, okay, yeah, like, you're a pastor, but you have flaws too. So why you have to put on this image for oh well, I can't show you that I'm weak. No, like, dude, we're not perfect. Like, we need to hear your struggles, not because, oh, we're gonna point the finger and judge you. It's more like
Right.
we need to learn from you. We need to understand. Okay, so you overcame porn addiction. Okay, so what strategies did you take that might help me? Like, they don't talk about those kind of
Right.
things. And I know
You
I'm going a little deep with it, but that's just how I think. So when you said that, what you said, it makes perfect sense. I really believe this is why I do this platform, so we can have those conversations, because there are conversations that need to be fucking had, and everybody wants to kind of sweep underneath the rug and pretend it doesn't
right.
exist. And it's like, no, that does not work like that. Because the more you suppress yourself, the more, if anything, that's how sometimes suicide increases, because we have so much suppression inside of us. It's like
Mm-hmm.
a sand in a bottle. The more it can only put so much, but you keep trying to force more in, it's gonna pop the bottom, break the bottle. You're gonna burst.
Right. Right. No,
So I definitely
totally.
agree with you on that. Yeah. And the comments real quick. So I see a lot of like, thank you, like, you're amazing for sharing. We're all learning from you to grow emotionally and personally without fear. I hear you.
Thank you.
Our culture of late definitely puts appreciation and praise to pain on a pedestal. I would love to hold a life with her. She speaks to my spirit. This is what oh, that's Harmeen. Yeah, yo, that's my guy right there, man. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of like, thank you for showing. And then yeah, everybody saying that that's truth, and comfortable, convenient truth. And that's the thing. Yeah, I think what it all comes down to, we can all agree that, yeah, this conversation need to be had. That's what it all comes
Yeah.
down to. And and one thing I always believe in is the fact that, because okay, because when I first walked into things of God, I'll say this, I'll end it with this. I would tell, a little testimony, but I always left things out because I was too embarrassed to talk about
Mm-hmm.
those things, especially me growing up in a Puerto Rican macho family.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt like God was telling me, well, no, if you leave things out, then how could somebody gravitate to you? How could somebody really know what it is? When they say the struggle is real, like, how would somebody really know that by leaving the
Mm-hmm.
stories out? That's why I feel like, just talk about, obviously know your audience. Obviously,
Right.
who and how to discern the situation, but to just leave it out and act like it doesn't exist, that's not healthy. It's not, like, I get why, but it's not healthy because of the suppression and the depression that it can cause sometimes. And everything you said, again, I have so much respect for you because of that, because
Thank
it needs
you.
to be talked about. And you did mention a lot of stuff that very, very touching. I wanted to touch on that a little bit more. You talk about the corporate
Mm-hmm.
environment and stuff like that. And I feel like that's not talked about enough. And it's interesting because I don't know if you watch wrestling, but with the whole Vince McMahon thing that's happening, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just ridiculous to think that so much crap the woman went through, and now she's making awareness. Okay, and then it motivated other women to step up and say, yes, I was victimized by this guy too. So
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Last year, I wrote a piece, what I want on International Women's Day. My plan is to do a spoken on it this year on March 8th. And it was very interesting to me because what I did in the piece is I literally just ran through all of these experiences I've had as a woman. And a lot of these I have never even, like, I remember I had one moment where I was having a debate with my father. It was a political debate. I don't want to get political right now, but I basically like turned to him and I said to him, "Do you have any idea what I go through, like what I deal with?" And when I started to tell him, he nearly drove off the road. And he was like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, this is the life of a woman every single day, especially in certain environments. And this is my life, and I'm going to be very transparent. This is my white life as a white middle class woman in New Jersey, let alone what the experience is like for, you know, women of color, like people who are lower income. It is hard. hard, and nobody wants to talk about it. And it's a problem. You know, at the end of the day, we as humans rely so heavily on human connection. And we're so comfortable having that connection with things that are artificial. You know, social media, filtered pictures, like what's the new popular style? What's everybody listening to? Real human connection comes from being seen. That's one of the things that I've committed myself to really trying to do. Like when I move through my life every single day, and I wrote a piece recently where I talked about the moment that you walk through a door and somebody holds it open for you, and how profound an impact you can have in that millisecond of time that you walk through that door and you say thank you. Because like we don't think about it. You just walk through the door and go, thank you, and you move through. Have a good day. But like what if you stopped and made eye contact and said to that person, thank you so much. I really hope you have a great day. You can literally see the difference in a person when they walk away from that encounter. If we all did that, like if we all lived that and breathed that every day, imagine what our society could truly look like. You know, it starts with those little things. There was that comment that, well, pain is certainly on a pedestal right now. Yeah, it should be on a pedestal because it hasn't been on a pedestal. Nobody wanted to hear about people getting raped. Nobody wanted to hear about what a person who goes through that, what their entire life looks like, the chaos that unfolds from that one interaction, you know, from being marginalized by a society, the impact that has on the human psyche. And none of that is going to change. None of these problems we're facing right now is ever going to change if we don't start really seeing each other as humans and talking about the things that are important and relevant to us.
Mm.
Sorry, I sit
Oh
down off
my
my soapbox
no!
now.
Every time I go live, I always tell people I live for this. So a little backstory about why I started doing this too. This was a process because I started in 2020, but it didn't really get where it's at today until 2023. But I never had a voice growing up. I grew up in an environment where I had to be hush hush and I wasn't allowed to talk about stuff. You know, I grew up at a time where they were starting to bring awareness to mental health, but we weren't allowed to talk about it because in Hispanic culture, oh, that's not real. Because my parents were 1950s Puerto Ricans, and I was born in mid 80s, and it was just like, yeah, now 210, the Cold War, and we weren't allowed to talk about it, even though they were talking about it on TV. We was hush. And I went through a lot of suppression growing up. I went through therapy. I've been in the psych ward. I've been through stuff I wouldn't understand myself. But I don't use it as a thing of shame, even though I used to. I wear it as a badge of honor to help me remember, like, hey, this is what I used to be. This is not who I am today. But this is testimony for me to share with somebody else. And when I got introduced to podcasting and platforms on the Instagram realm, I said, okay, what can I be different? How can I be different? I said, you know what? I'm going to give what wasn't given to me. Because everybody features things that's fine. I'm not hating on anybody else. It's just, okay, but what about like an actual conversation? How can this conversation be about? And this is why I do this. And then like right now, you and me, we're having this powerful conversation. And I live for this because it wasn't given to me, but now I can give it to somebody else. But I'm still getting blessed by this because I'm learning from you. I'm learning from the audience. I'm learning from the
Right.
support. Yeah. Am I everybody's cup of tea? No, I'm okay with that. But I'm learning. We're learning from each other. We're feeding off each other. We're conversating with each other in the sense that no, let's be our authentic self. And this is, to me, that's the most important thing. If I could be remembered for just being the one that provides when there was no other place. Like, why do celebrities be the only one to have shit like this, but we can't fucking have shit like that? So I'm gonna
Exactly.
be one of the first people to do it. Fuck it. Like, let's do this shit. I don't know where this was going, but to where it's at today, I'm fucking proud of it. You know what?
Right.
And
You should be. You should be, because you're bringing a voice to something that people are not comfortable talking about. And the hope is that, look, the reality is that change takes time. Like they say, it takes, even within a subgroup, like a small concentrated group, 7 years to change a culture. 7 years. From a social standpoint, the fastest cultural change we have seen in American history was what transpired with gay rights. That was the fastest change. And that was what, like 15 years? 20
yeah.
years? That was the fastest change we've seen culturally. That is mind blowing when you think that's how long it really takes to have an effect. But it starts with you, it starts with me, it starts with each person living their truth every day and incrementally. One of the things I always love to say, and this goes back to Shel Silverstein actually, is when you're struggling through life, when you're struggling with a project, when things seem insurmountable, right? I love to say, well, how do you eat a whale? And the answer is one bite at a time. You do it one bite at a time. You don't look at that whole whale, you don't look at that whole problem, because that is insurmountable. You look at what is right before you. You conquer that. Then you look at what's in front of you again. You conquer that. And that's what you're doing, Andy, like every single day. Like, bravo to you and bravo to the other artists that are on here that are really affecting change, incrementally, because it does have an exponential effect. I'm confident that it will. The work that we're putting out now, I'm confident in the future, especially with the advent of artificial intelligence. Our humanity is the differentiator. There's all these arguments about, oh, well, AI poetry and AI writing. Well, the one thing AI can't capture is your organic human experience. It can't write a piece about what it was like for you to go through that, to feel like you had to suppress all of that inside of you your entire life. It doesn't know how to do that, right? Because
Mm,
it hasn't been done yet. I feel like that is what is going to be the big sea change in creative work moving forward, is this movement of people truly being authentic.
mm, mm. Yo, I'm yo. Oh my God. I am I'm on cloud nine because this is everything. This is truth. This is true. No, I live for this kind of stuff. Because I love conversations. Growing up, I was always told, "Oh, you can't be in adult conversations, whatever." But I was always the guy that, "Oh, I want to see what they're talking about because I'm
Right,
intrigued." That saying, "Curiosity kills the cat." So that's pretty much what it was, and I got in a lot of trouble, but it taught me things that I didn't think it was going to be applied to later on. So I was sometimes, when my dad was alive, I would tell him that, but like, even though those conversations you and that mom had, I don't know why you never did it in front of us, but I get it. But I learned from those conversations too. So, if anything, that I still apply them to today. And it's like, oh shit, like I understand why my dad was the way I was, but the difference between me and my dad is I'm gonna be better in a sense, like, oh, that I'm not in a sense like, oh, I'm gonna be a better father than him. No, it's more like I'm gonna learn to not repeat the same generational cycle. Whether I'm gonna take that and
right,
make it better, so my son doesn't have to feel suppressed the way I felt suppressed. And I think with me, it's more like I don't think it was intentional abuse. I think it was just unintentional verbal abuse because that's just the culture I grew up in. I don't think it was always their fault. It's just what it was. And I always think about Allen Ginsberg because everybody was like post-war, and he's like, okay, but why aren't we talking about this? And a lot of people didn't like Allen Ginsberg because of that. But had it not been for the Beat Generation, we would never had really the hippies era too. So I love Allen Ginsberg because this one guy that introduced it to me. But it's what and people don't agree with everything he stood for, but I understand why he felt that things needed to change because everything was conservative. Everything was always, oh yeah, structured and suit and ties, and we're gonna talk about American civilization and Allen Ginsberg. Oh no, but this exists too. Why aren't we addressing these issues? And that's why a lot of people did not like him. But I understood why he felt that this needed to change because I think I don't to say it started with him, but it started with a few people with him, and then other people after him, by kind of paving the way. Because had it not been for people like Allen Ginsberg, I feel like civilization wouldn't be where it is at today. And I think that's what he's trying to get at. Like, hey, they're having rallies. They're what's the word? They're against Vietnam, but why are they against it? Why are they about peace and love and unity? Why? And he will go to these rallies and write poetry and stories about them. And that's one of the things that inspired me to expand as much as I can with this platform, because I want to know why. I want to understand. I want to expand my mind. And it's like everybody wants to be like one way. Like, I'm sorry, life is not fucking one way. I'm sorry, it's just not. End the fucking story. Like, that's the reality of it. And yeah, and then Zulu55 says, I can relate. Cuban culture as well. We have come a long way, and this has been a true eye-opener. Love this platform to hear real conversations. Love this. God bless. No, thank you. It's not easy. It's not easy.
No.
I always tell people, yeah, I don't invite just anyone here because I am very discerning about that, but I welcome everybody in the sense like, hey, this is your truth. Let's talk about it. Because, yeah, every other Thursday, we do open mic poetry virtual, but sometimes it's not just, okay, read a piece and go. Oh, hey, talk to us about that piece. Every other Friday, like today, we had Unraveled Conversations. We talk about poetry. But before that, we were talking about what were we talking about? We was talking about depression. We was talking about unforgiveness and how it affects our everyday life. Like, these are things that no one talks about. And yeah, we're a group of poets, but it doesn't mean only poets could come in. Anybody could come in and chime in. You don't have to be a poet just to like have the conversation. So I love this. Like yeah, and I gotta agree with Zulu 55. This was definitely an eye opener for me, because I felt like you took me to a whole other world that was like, oh,
That's my goal.
yeah. And to think we met at random, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Post, and then here we are. I'm like, oh, because I'm trying to get more, because I live in Bayonne and there's no art in fucking Bayonne. I did my first in-person open mic. I love what we did. I want to do more this year. And this is, I love this. Like, Pennsylvania people I'm meeting too. And it's like, I love this. Like, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And what you said definitely opened my eyes tonight. It really put this in perspective that I never really, like, wow. Like, I understood something one way, but you took that one thing and did 20 things. I was like, oh, shit. Once we're done, obviously, I'm definitely gonna rewatch this live, because, yeah, because because I was taking notes like crazy. Like, holy shit,
Well,
man.
I'm glad that that's like
Um,
where you're at, because honestly, like if you look at my bio, like that's my goal, right? Like let's create and let's leave each other, forever changed. Like let's inspire each other to look at things completely differently than we ever have. I think when you look back at history, and Ginsberg is a beautiful example of that, um, it's the disruptors that we rely on to affect
yeah.
significant change. The people that have the sense of self and the bravery to say the things that people are not comfortable saying, to initiate those conversations. You look at the counterculture movement and the beat poetry movement in the 60s. It had a profound impact on huge changes racially, women's rights, labor laws, social security. Like, we didn't have social security in the early 60s. It wasn't until we started having a counterculture movement that people were like, oh, old people need to survive too. Like, what we do as artists, and this is something I fiercely believe in, what we do as artists is we carry forward the conversations that people aren't comfortable having, and we bring light to things that people aren't comfortable discussing. And the goal is to continue that dialogue, you know? And that can be about love. I know there's a lot of poetry. There are a lot of writers that focus on love and the emotive experience, and it's not to diminish that as well. Not everything needs to be dark. Not everything needs to be you know, that ugly underbelly component, but that's just what I gravitate to. I'm drawn to that. It's what I'm passionate about. But the reality is I think really good writing makes you question how you view your world at the end of the day.
Amen. Wow. Oh shit. Wow. Lori, you have no idea how much I needed tonight, and I didn't know where it was gonna go. I just did. This was like, and I think too, because it's crazy because we were just talking about how important art and poetry was in the live we did earlier, and I felt what what you added tonight all aligned with each other, and it was just like holy
Awesome.
shit, and whew, yeah, you know, because we are towards the end, of
Yeah.
course. And I always ask this, I always ask everybody this. So when we're not here anymore, I'm there. We're all, you know, in heaven, having party with the Lord and all that stuff, or whatever it is that you believe, the afterlife. When people hear Lori Sue, what do you want them to remember you by? What impact you want to leave behind? What is it? They say Lori Sue. What do you want them to think about? What do you want them to say when Lori Sue's name is mentioned?
Wow. I think at the end of the day, I want people to feel their own value when they think of me. I want
Mm,
people to think to themselves, I feel seen. I feel seen because of her work. I feel like that's the legacy I try to instill in my children. As they move through the world, it's the legacy I try to instill in my professional world. Um, and I feel like that's the greatest gift you can give to people is to really allow them to be seen for who they truly are. You know, there are millions and billions of people on this planet, and we are all unique and we are all beautiful, and we all deserve to be seen for who we are. We can
mm,
contribute so much. And I think that's my goal.
mm,
Yeah,
mm,
it's very little has to do with me. You know, I create art and, you know, I'm working on a manuscript, but the reality is I don't need to make money from it. Um, I don't need it to be like top 10 in its genre. I just want something for my kids to have to say, this was what my mom did.
mm,
You know, she helped people feel not alone. She helped people feel like there was a world that they fit into. There was a world that understood them. There was a world that valued them. There was a world that really saw them as who they are. That to me that's sacred, truly.
mm, mm. Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? Oh man. Wow. Yeah, because we could talk all night, but obviously yeah, I gotta go to bed soon. But
Yeah.
uh,
We should do like
Lori, thank you.
we should do like a writers roundtable someplace in like the Jersey PA area and just like
Mm.
do like a dialogue, like a roundtable dialogue, you know?
You know,
Like a
you
bunch of really
kind of gave me some
stories,
ideas here.
you know?
You're giving me ideas to expand. I'm always looking to expand the platform. So, I mean, I'm always open to suggestions. I know on the week of April 4th, 5th, and 6th, I am going to PA. I'm going to Poet Palooza. The name of the person that's doing this, her name is Magnus, and her handle is Masthetic. It's
Hmm.
MAGSETHIC. I think I'll
Did you
tag
interview
and stuff
her?
like
Did
that.
you do an interview with her?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I
I
did.
saw that. I saw that. She's in Easton.
Yes,
Is that the
yes,
Easton one? Okay. That sounds
yes.
awesome. I may try to go out for that.
Yes, yes, and I'm gonna network over there, and then on the 4th, the Noble Close. It hasn't been announced yet, but it is an official thing. I will be that I will have my first feature on the 4th for Noble Quills. So once you know, I'll put it on my story and stuff like that. But again, I'm always looking to network and getting together, and also like roundtable. I love the roundtable there. We could definitely talk in the
Yeah.
DMs about that. That's something I'm definitely I'm always looking for like expansion. I'm always looking for, hey, do you have an idea for a show? Let's talk, and I'll give you a spot. I don't care. I want people to, have their creativity become a reality, if that makes sense. And I definitely believe in that.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
beautiful thing. It's a beautiful
it's-
thing.
yes. So Lori and everybody else, thank you so much for tonight, because
Thank
I
you.
definitely needed this. I think we all needed tonight. After everything
Aw.
in this life, you touched on some topics that needed to be spoken about. Thank you so much for just being you, for being your rawest, authentic self, because it's hard sometimes to, you know, let's be real. Everybody likes to chase clout and shit. No one really wants authenticity anymore, and it's sad, And I long for authenticity, and I feel like you definitely brought that tonight. You showed me that it still exists, and why I should keep doing this. So thank you so much.
Aw.
Thank you, everybody.